having me here today. Cathy, you did a wonderful job. And it's just so unfortunate that we actually have to do this speech in general, that free speech actually has to be defended, that it's something that we can't just take for granted. Now, I'm not really an expert on free speech. Obviously, I haven't completed any courses on free speech. I don't have a PhD in free speech. I can't teach at a postgraduate level on free speech. But I am an expert in the tactics used to silence people. At events I've held and at appearances I've made, people have tried to violently suppress my speech. I was kicked out of a political party in Canada, actually, and a couple of weeks ago I had someone pour urine on me for stating there was only 2 genders. I've had so many people wish death upon me that I'm surprised I'm not in the special spot in hell for women who don't vote for Hillary yet. The people that I associate with also seem to have this issue of suppression of their speech. And I'm sure that a lot of you here have had your speech suppressed online, in classes, on campus before. It's something that is going to affect all of us, even the people that are suppressing it now if we don't do something about it. Last year I got a lot of media attention for this up here, the Vancouver Slut Walk that I went to. And I held this sign, "There is no rape culture in the West," and the girls there were just livid, obviously. They were just vitriolic. They harassed me, they stole my sign and ripped it up. Unfortunately, we didn't get that on tape. I don't know if any of you watched Milo and I at the Amber Rose one. We did get that sign being ripped up on footage. That one was fun. And they were shoving my cameraman as well. And then a few days immediately after the Slut Walk, these ladies published a petition about me that was just riddled with lies to get me kicked out of my political party, all because I was a woman with the wrong opinions. If you need any notion of how ridiculous these people were being and how ridiculous this petition is, here are a few of my favorite quotes from the letter that went along with the petition. So, I, along with others, was quite traumatized by a woman that was there named Lauren Southern. I asked her how there could be no rape culture when I had been raped 4 times. And this was a common thing that went on. They were like, "I've been raped 20 times. I've been raped 7 times. And I was like, just so I know, this is the girl who was writing this. I'm not saying anything. The event was about consent, and she was being mentally and physically harassing dozens of women. The English that was used was great in this as well. Lauren told one of my friends to check her many privileges. This was not only hurtful, but ironic, as she is a trans person who is filled with half Aboriginal blood. And shit that never happened, by the way. They're just making this up now. This is the best one here. I vomited all last night. I was so triggered. Many other women were experiencing fallout symptoms as well. These people are acting like it is fucking Chernobyl. Wait, this one was pretty good too. I felt a protector mama queen roaring and raging inside me while these women were being re-victimized by Lauren Southern. I'm not sure where the strength came from. I was shaking and weak after and needed to be held up for a moment as I led the wolf pack away from the predator. Now, that was a bit of a Freudian slip there, I think, because last time I checked, wolf packs were the predator, but whatever. She got lost in her own imagination while writing this. Now, this was before I was fully acquainted with the powers of the PC police. I thought that sane people would look at this letter and laugh like I did. I thought they would know that these girls were out of their fucking minds. And I thought this petition would just confirm it for them when they saw it. But to my complete shock, instead, tons of people were totally buying this fabricated story. Nobody cared about evidence either. I had people that I knew from high school, that I had family friends that were deleting me off Facebook, that just sent me vitriolic messages. I was horrified to see what was going on. And I sent them video evidence. I actually had to publish a video immediately after that reached almost 1 million views, showing that this petition was a lie about me, showing all the footage that I was not going up to rape survivors and telling them they deserved to be raped, as this petition said I was. I showed the whole clip. I was standing there silently, and yet people did not care about it. They deleted me off Facebook and still haven't talked to me to this day. Eventually, the Libertarian Party that I was running for removed me as a candidate as well for Canada's Parliament because of my wrong think. It was a rude awakening. awakening for me, and I didn't understand the full extent of social justice regression until I was forced to confront it head to head. It appears people have a hard time recognizing authoritarianism unless it looks familiar. Social justice warriors don't wear jackboots, pointed hats, or gray uniforms. Instead, they wear piercings, ironic t-shirts, and colored hair. But that doesn't diminish the massive threat they represent to free speech. They destroy lives, they degrade society, and corrode our fundamental freedoms while claiming that they, not you, are the real victims. Since the slut walk, I've been confronted by the police and escorted out of an event while accompanied by a certain dangerous faggot. I've been banned from Facebook and censored on Twitter more times than I can remember. Here's a few examples of the things I've been banned for. I'm going undercover as a woman to find out what they go through every day. I've discovered women are called faggot a lot. Now, it wasn't just completely offensive stuff. Like this up here, as a woman, I just hope that one day I have as many rights as a gun does. So you want to be banned from polling places on the day of an election, banned from being able to enter government buildings, prohibited on school grounds, and it was just kind of making fun of social justice logic, right? I was banned for a week for that. And more recently, as I mentioned earlier, I had piss thrown on me by a feminist for suggesting there are only two genders. I think we actually have a video of that, Hunter.
Sorry guys, there's only two genders. Two genders, female and male. Also, this is extremely controversial to say. Science and facts, extremely controversial.
So anyways, there was a bit of a brawl after that, but we still got the clothes like Monica Lewinsky's dress, like in a bag if we have to do testing or something. The cops actually told me that it would be 2 years if I wanted to pursue charges against this girl. They contacted me, and I'm like, the courts must be so backed up from fake rape accusations. Yeah, I didn't bother pressing charges. But our generation has a complete and total disregard for speech rights, and it is destroying our freedoms. I partially blame the utter disaster that are the American and Canadian education system. Our education systems have no room for diversity of opinion, and students have simply been classically conditioned to regurgitate leftist lessons. Students have been taught that creativity with their hair color is just as, or in fact more important than creativity and diversity of opinion and thought. I'd also blame it on millennials themselves, though. We are not total victims to the circumstances we are born into. It seems most millennials don't care for free speech because they don't have any of their own ideas to defend. Sadly, Generation Y is the first generation to produce no prominent intellectuals. Most of our generation are lazy and unoriginal, especially the hipsters and the progressives who can't shut up about how revolutionary and creative they are. In reality, they have to make up for lack of personality and ideas with 20 gibberish pronouns. I'm sorry, but pretending you are a demigirl or agender on the internet is not creative. It's basic, it's unoriginal, it took no thought or energy, and people have been writing much better fiction for centuries. Professors, of course, will egg on these students to take part in censorship of others' opinions, but we ultimately have free will. And college students, en masse, have chosen to be the enemy of free speech and the ally to conformity. What's even sadder is that these people don't realize they are just being useful idiots. They genuinely believe they're fighting hate speech, and don't realize they're actually fighting free speech, and the establishment love it. Students are continually being taught that someone's right to speak freely can actually be dangerous and harmful and hurt people. I'm not kidding. In my first year of academic writing class, our professor told us that he saw no difference between genocide and calling people mean names. And I'm not kidding. Actually, in the class before, he had called me a moron for saying that sometimes the death penalty might be okay. And when we had this class on speech being the same as violence, I put up my hand and I said, "Last class you called me a moron, but I don't think you're an SS officer." The guy had, he actually had a seizure in class, literally banging the desk. I was kicked out from the rest of the class. It was But they'll continually repeat that language is violence to students, and this is, of course, completely retarded. It is a nonsense notion. The only real hate speech is speech that directly threatens people or incites violence, and that is already illegal. Having ideas is not dangerous, being offensive is not harmful, and it should never be declared illegal, ever. If I use the word faggot, tranny, chink, or spick outside of this speech, people would be after my head. Or even the N-word, which I fear to use in this speech because my career could be over, as friends of mine have had theirs ended. This would offend people, but I wouldn't have done anything that should be prohibited with legal force. They are simply words, they have no power against you physically, and they don't have to emotionally either. It is our victim culture that has convinced people they do. Even scarier is when facts become hate speech. If we let the social justice warriors take the reins, you're going to find yourself sent to jail for questioning the 700 invented genders by Tumblr. And before you accuse me of a slippery slope fallacy, that is not our future. That is our present. There are certain facts that you aren't even allowed to utter on campuses today, right now, because of the PC police. It's very frightening how much we are limiting ourselves and encouraging delusions just to avoid causing offense. I'll give you a few examples of some of the speech you'd probably be uncomfortable uttering on college. Proper methodology identifies a male advantage in general intelligence that increases exponentially at higher levels, relates to brain size, and explains, at least in part, the universal male dominance in society. Helmut Nyborg, Danish researcher and professor, 2004, essentially stating that men dominate in society because on average they're more intelligent. Progress in neuroscience and genomics has made these politically comforting shibboleths, such as the non-existence of intelligence and the non-existence of race, untenable. Steven Pinker, American cognitive scientist, 2009. Biologically, there are differences between the races, and some people are biologically more intelligent than others. We don't want to revert to the 1960s view that human behavior is purely culturally determined, since we now know that view was profoundly mistaken. Men and women don't just differ in terms of genitalia, but in other important ways. Simon Baron-Cohen, British professor and author, 2010. Girls like to play with Barbies, boys like to play with trucks. That is a scientific fact. There's this notion that Islam and Muslims are this protected species, that if we talk about them at all or criticize them at all, it is somehow hurting or humiliating Muslims. That is a ridiculous idea. Richard Dawkins, British biologist and author, 2015. Terrorism has been championed by Islam. That is a fact. Your feelings will not change that. Political pundit and author Greg Gutfeld wrote a wonderful book on this topic called The Bible of Unspeakable Truths. We've gotten to this point where we are literally not saying things as obvious as being fat is unhealthy for you. It's utterly insane, and it's gotten to the point where political correctness is killing us. The fat positivity movement is killing us. Being okay with transgenderism being pushed on young children despite the high suicide rates is killing us. Accepting hordes of undocumented refugees in the name of being altruistic and politically correct is killing us. And I refuse to remain silent while that happens. And many others want to speak up as well. But now they literally have to fear being arrested by their governments for the crime of doing so. Agree or disagree, people should be allowed to say what they want. The idea that you should suffer some kind of punishment for speaking openly is astounding. Seriously, try mentioning some of these things in one of your classrooms one day. I've nearly given professors aneurysms, and they've cussed me out in class and said I'm not allowed to express certain views because of that. A girl in my women's studies class, which I took because I'm a crazy person, she actually stood up in the middle of class and said, "Your different opinions make me afraid to come to class. You shouldn't be allowed to have them." Now, I've been brought in front of the dean multiple times, and they kind of talk to me a bit, and they're like, "Oh, Lauren, we got all these complaints about you again." And they're like, "It's okay, just go through free speech." But I get complaints constantly because people are genuinely afraid of different opinions on campuses. It's insane. And this is the issue, is what people consider hate speech is so ambiguous and subjective that it can really be anything. If you go to Jersey Shore and give some women on the beach the ability to legislate hate speech laws, you're going to find yourself getting a prison sentence because you say someone's eyebrows are not on fleek. And as a Canadian, I'm jealous of you and your First Amendment rights. Unfortunately, in Canada, we don't have the benefit of real constitutional protection of free speech rights. We do have hate speech laws, though, enforced proudly by the Human Rights Commission, a Orwellian council that was initially meant to address small disputes over racial discrimination and gender discrimination in the workplace, but has now been transformed into the big brother waiting for us to say something wrong. You give them a little control and they will take a lot. Ezra Levant, my boss at the Rebel Media, has been dragged in front of the Human Rights Commission before for the vile crime of publishing comics of Mohammed. No one can argue for free speech better than my boss, Ezra. If you don't fight the anti-free speech brigade before they become a real problem here, you could be facing this. We just got a short video of Ezra here.
We publish what we publish. The words in the picture speak for themselves. Are you saying that one answer is wrong and one answer is right? Will a certain answer contrary to law? So if I were to say, hypothetically, that the purpose was to instill hatred, incite hatred, and cause offense, are you saying that's an acceptable answer?
I'd have to look at it in the context of all the information and determine if it was indeed.
I've been playing silly butter. I think you know that the answer here, that answer would be illegal.
Now, what's scary about that is what they're talking about is she had asked, what is your intent with the comics he published? And they're going back and forth, and he's like, why does that matter? I should be allowed to publish these regardless of what my intent is. But he knew if he had said it was to cause offense, if he had said it was solely to offend certain groups, he could have been fined a large amount, even put in jail. Luckily, the man who charged him for that dropped the case, but right now we have a guy named Mike Ward that is facing trial in front of the Human Rights Commission for making a joke. He's a comedian. He could be fined up to $180,000 for the crime of making that joke that offended someone. And I know that $180,000 Canadian is like $1,000 American, but my point still stands. And in Canada, it's not just large fines that you could face either. We just had a man here who narrowly avoided going to jail after feminists accused him of criminal harassment because he disagreed with them on Twitter. Toronto graphic designer Gregory Allen Elliott had offered to do free design work for a feminist group. He had a falling out with one of the ladies involved in the feminist group and had a series of arguments with them on Twitter. These women deemed that his tweeting about their actions and talking to them on Twitter constituted criminal harassment. Literally tweets on a screen, just tweets words on a screen, and none of them were even that bad. I think the worst thing he said was that one of the girls, Paisley Ray, had a fat ass. But I mean, that's pretty mild compared to most of the stuff you see on Twitter every day. I mean, the death threats I get, like, gee. So Elliott was arrested and actually put in jail, and his only way out was to agree to bail conditions that barred him from using any internet-enabled device for the duration of the trial, which was 3 years. A key term of his employment, obviously, as a graphic designer was his ability to go online, work on the computer, share his work, talk to people over email. So he lost his job. He also lost the ability to defend himself online, while these feminists targeted him and retained the ability to relentlessly slander him through social media. And this is all while he spent $100,000 on legal fees for a trial he should never had to endure in the first place. And just, these ladies that pressed charges didn't spend a dime. It was the government that hired the Crown. In a sane world, the general public would look at our justice system and what they did to Gregory Allen Elliott in disgust. Instead, the media supported them, and the legal system supported them, and even though Elliott was found innocent of all charges, he still paid a massive price both financially and personally. And you had people like CNN, or CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, and BuzzFeed coming out and still saying that he was guilty after getting an innocent trial. He lost 3 years of his life, lost $100,000, lost his reputation, all for the crime of disagreeing on Twitter. So it was a victory, but a very hollow one, because that case never should have happened. It never should have gone so far. Our government, legal system, and media never should have acted the way they did. But we've created a culture that does not support free speech, both in Canada and America. People in our culture believe that disagreeing with women on the internet should result in large fines, media slander, and jail time. Unless it's me, of course. What these people don't realize is that it's going to be them next. It's going to be their speech that gets suppressed. History repeats itself and the pendulum swings. I'll still be here advocating free speech when it's the feminists and the Tumblr idiots in their fantasy world being silenced. It's repeated a lot, but it still stands true. As much as I dislike what you have to say, I will defend your right to say it. And the best way to combat ideas you don't like is not to respond to them with censorship, but to respond with more free speech. Because there will always be two undesirable results to silencing someone. Firstly, and almost definitely, you will find yourself silenced with the same gag you used to silence others with. If you look up Bahar Mustafa, that's an excellent example. Secondly, when you silence someone, it only makes people more curious to hear what they have to say. That's why I can laugh when I have piss thrown on me, and why Milo Yiannopoulos can tweet out jokes after he's been barred from a university. Because we know it just makes people more interested to hear what we have to say. The Streisand effect will always take hold. Trying to silence people will just attract more attention to their cause. And if you genuinely fear the opinions of certain people, don't silence them, challenge them. Anti-Trump protesters don't seem to realize that by chaining themselves to cars and trying to shut down his rallies, they only help him. I'm watching my father turn from a Cruz fan to a Trump fan after watching every single one of these protests. There are serious repercussions if we do not succeed in defending free speech for everyone. I do genuinely hope we get to a point where the left and the right can sit down without the constant swing of that pendulum of censorship being a factor, and we can have a discussion of free and open discourse. But for now, the pendulum has gone too far to one side. It's too far to the left, and we will continue having to offend people in defense of free speech. Thank you.